Well, Happy New Year, everybody. And as always, thank you to those who have subscribed to my channel. This is the Associate Dean, your favorite Associate Dean, I should say, of the Department of Criminal Justice and the Social Sciences here at Southern New Hampshire University Global. And as always, on behalf of the incredible faculty that teach and guide and mentor and support all of you, I want to welcome you to the first edition here in 2021. We're going to have a good year. We're going to make it a good year and stay positive and not let emotions and all this noise, okay, rule our thinking or impact our thinking or make us think negative or change the lens. So we reduce our ability to think critically, holistically about problems in order to become what? The epitome of society's problem solvers. That's who we are in the criminal justice system, regardless of where you are, where you want to be. You have to be a problem solver and good at it, but you can't let your emotions get in the way of that, right? We have to be very careful of that. So, so as you know, I'm a huge fan of books, right? And I know all of you are. And the more I read, the more I know, the less that I know, right? This is a new point, a new jump off for me. This is something that will stimulate my thinking and help me to become a better critical thinker and a better problem solver so I can be a better service to all of you and to the faculty as well. So, one of the greatest books, I'm a huge fan of this particular gentleman, Dr. Jerome Ricart, who is an associate professor of education and psychology. And he wrote this book. So I mentioned emotions, and all that's going on every second, and how we're bombarded with this and that, and it's rough, right? And it can provoke some negative thinking, some emotions. So let me read a portion of what he's written about that, and let's connect that to our learning and the scope of our learning, our lens that we see things through, in order to again become the best problem solver we can be. All right, so there are so-called self-conscious secondary emotions of shame, pride, hubris, and regret. And they're all derived from the basic emotion of disgust. Secondary emotions are influenced heavily by social context and the mores associated with a culture. Though a description of emotions may seem slightly out of place in a chapter on perception, this is what this chapter is about. Much of the influence of emotion upon cognition has to do with our subjective appraisal or interpretation of a stimulus, thinking content, right? For example, an image or the thought of a raw steak may make some of you, presumably the hardcore meat eaters of the bunch, right, salivate. It's an appetite of stimulus, he calls it, whereas vegetarians and vegans would be disgusted. So that's an aversive stimulus. Differences in emotional perception and the associated responses are critically important to most, if not all, forms of cognition. Indeed, though once upon a time it was believed that the presence of emotional responses inhibited or in some ways impaired cognition, we now know that cognition and emotion must be viewed together. So, what does that mean? I was always taught when I was a police officer to make sure you separate your emotions from the problem at hand. That's really important so you can see things objectively and you can see a balance in, say, the conflicting arguments or positions people are taking while you're trying to solve that problem. Think maybe a domestic. A lot of the topics, if not most of the topics or content related issues that you're going to read about in your courses, are very provocative and they can provoke some negative emotions. So, how do you remove yourself from that so you don't have a myopic view of a particular problem based upon, okay, emotions triggered by past experiences, etc.? How do you look at things objectively without letting these things take hold? Is it possible or is it impossible? According to the doctor here, they're both tied together. So it's not that you're going to dismiss your emotions. You have to make sure that they are in check. Okay, so that you can look at a problem and see the root causes behind the problem. Not the surface or the results, but what is the cause and effect? What's really going on here? Even if you're upset about it and say, this, I know how this person feels, or you identify with them, or whatever it may be. But we have to look at the cause and or myriad of causes, okay, behind the problems we're seeking to solve. So many of you in the new program are immersed in competency-based exercises, which puts you in the driver's seat. You're playing the role of problem solver. And how do you do that objectively? How do you present yourself as an objective arbiter, right? How do you make an appropriate decision that's going to satisfy all, say, stakeholders or parties involved. You have to try to keep your emotions in check. Very hard to do. All right, and any police officer that's teaching you, any corrections, any CJ professional who's been involved in the front lines of problem solving can tell you the same thing. They will back me up on this 100%. You're going to attend to problems that really tug at your heartstrings, really tug at your emotion, and whether you know it or not, consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, your perception of that problem, your approach, your ability to solve it may be tempered or affected by perhaps your emotions. So just something to think about when you're in your course. Not to say you're going to emotionally remove yourself from the problem, okay? You're not an automaton, but don't let it necessarily guide your thinking, so you're not diving deeper into these issues, okay, to become a learned person, accumulating wisdom that you can deploy in the form of excellence when we talk about problem solving. Okay? So I hope everyone has a really great year. I hope you had a wonderful, relaxed, off the grid, holiday season. Remember, we all have your back. You have the greatest online faculty, period, in the United States. I will stand my ground on that till the cows come home. They're fantastic. They have your back. Anything you need, don't hesitate to get a hold of me. Great seeing all of you. All right, let's have a great year and thanks again. Be safe.